AEW Forbidden Door 2026 had everything we'd wanted and then some. So, run it. I am going to start with the buy-in. If you don't want to see what happened in the buy-in, skip to there, and we'll just have some fun with that. But we did get 3 matches during the buy-in. The very first match of the night, we got to see Garcia take on Drilla Maloney. No idea who this guy was. Came in totally blind to this entire thing. But oh boy, did that boy have some strength. And he ended up beating Garcia after just a few minutes. I mean, it wasn't quite a squash match. Garcia did get some good shots in. But at the end of the entire thing, Drilla Maloney, interesting name, did get the victory. He walked out with his hand raised. No big deal. We moved on to the next thing. Match number 2 of the night, we got to see a young woman by the name of Maika from New Japan taking on Sky Blue as part of the Survival of the Fittest whole thing that's going on. I thought originally that the pay-per-view was going to be the end of that and we would have the TBS champion, but apparently some more shenanigans went on. We threw this match together, and now the finale of Survival of the Fittest is happening on Wednesday. So don't shoot the messenger. That's just what's happening. Sky Blue did end up losing. Boo. But at least we're going to have a little bit more of an interesting setup for Wednesday when this entire thing goes down, and we will have a brand new TBS champion. Third and final match of the buy-in, we got to see Thunder Rosa bring her buddy Olympia up from CMLL. They went up against Megacross for the titles. It was a very interesting match. It definitely lasted a lot longer than the 5-minute thing that Megacross has been doing lately, and the titles were on the line. But, hi, hello, they're not losing those titles. Again, they're not losing those titles, at least until the end of the year. We're bringing in people from other companies. Nobody can beat this team. I don't know why anybody's still trying. So, good attempt, Thunder, but what are you going to do now? Where are you going? What's happening here? Congratulations to Megacross for keeping the titles, and then we got into the main show. Match number 1 for the main show was our triple threat tag team match. We saw the Bucks versus Sky Team, which was Mystico and Mascara Dorada. And then we got the New Japan team of Teton and Takagi. And I don't remember the name of their team. It was not a big deal. Everybody except for Takagi were high flyers. That dude was just the odd powerhouse of the entire thing. So he did a couple of things where he was just kind of like stopping dudes from doing flippy tricks, and he was just clotheslining everybody. It was a very interesting thing to happen. At the end of the day, my thought was that Sky Team was going to win. I truly thought that they were going to get the victory in this, especially because everybody loves Mystico. Mascara Dorada is on a little bit of a run right now. The two of them just won the ROH tag titles, but I was wrong. So after the first match, I was 0-1, and it turns out that the Bucks decided they wanted the victory. So that's just where we landed with all of that. So no shade on the Bucks. Enjoy the Bucks. The Bucks are good. However, I didn't expect the Bucks to be the winners. So congratulations to them. Moving to match 2. Up next, we got to see Omega take on Zack Sabre Jr., and that was a match that I was actually looking forward to. I do believe that I thought Zack was going to win this one, so I was 0-2 on my predictions, but it happens. Who am I but some dude that lives in his living room and watches very strange television. So the entire thing was very good. It was very back and forth. Those guys, even though they haven't wrestled each other in almost a decade, seem to kind of have each other's number for a great while. Eventually, Omega was going to do something to Zack on the announce tables, and Zack reversed it and turned it into an octopus hold, and that was scary in and of itself. And then Omega slipped, and they both tumbled off the table, kind of in the laps of the Spanish announce team, bouncing off of chairs and feet. And then Zack popped up and was just like, hey, like, I'm good. He's not, but I'm still good. And he went back into the ring. The ref started the 10 count. It was very interesting. Omega did make it back in time. They had this whole back and forth for a little while longer. Omega finally managed to hit a one-winged angel, even though Zach had been working his arms over and he was having some issues picking him up and trying to get him around to do stuff. And Omega is the victor. So 2 for 2 on AEW stars getting the victory. Match 3 of the main card was Mox vs. Bandito. Oh my god, what a fucking match that was. The amount of shenanigans that were going back and forth. Mox was just being Mox, and he wasn't no-selling stuff, but he was popping back into it a little quicker than he probably should have because of the literal power that Bandito owns in his body. But it did go back and forth for quite a bit. Bandito got some really good offense in. Mox got some really good offense in. And then eventually, somehow, Bandito got broken open. Couldn't tell exactly where until Mox decided to grab one of the eye holes of his mask and rip it open. It's the most we've ever seen of that man's face. And for that, we are all sorry. Lucha rules are the rules. But Mox did end up with the victory. Brody King came running down afterward and was like half trying to pull Bandito out of the ring. Mox picked up Bandito and then put the title between them because it was a shot at the Continental title. And they shook hands. Mox picked up the title. He left. That was that. It was a very interesting match. It wasn't the longest match of the night. I also don't believe it was the shortest match of the night, but it didn't feel like it lasted forever just because there was so much going on between the two of them. So, congratulations to Mox on keeping your title. Congratulations to Bandito for showing you really can just run it for as long as you feel you need to. And sorry about your mask. The fourth match of the night was very interesting. It was Pac versus Umino for the IWGP Global Heavyweight title. I'm not sure how to explain it. Pac is Pac, and Umino is somebody who used to be one of Mox's underlings, and he is kind of cited as like the first Death Rider, but he doesn't do Death Rider-y stuff as far as he's not like ground and pound, hard-hitting, punch him in the face, ask questions later type of kid. And so the matchup was super interesting because Pac was flying and then being very based with his punches and stuff. Pac really got close to getting the victory a couple of times. Umino did end up with the victory in the end, so he got to keep his title, which is fine. I didn't think that Pac was going to take it away from him anyway. And then after everything was said and done, Mox came down and was like kind of talking to the kid. And then when it looked like Mox might try to pull something, Tanahashi came out just in totally normal clothing, which was very interesting to see because we're all so used to him with the big hair and the tights and the air guitar. And he just came out in like half a suit and raised the kid's hand and put the belt on him. And it was kind of like a passing of the torch moment. Mox and Pac disappeared. And that was that. So this kid definitely has something. I'm going to probably look up more videos of what he's able to accomplish over in New Japan just to get a little more background on him. So it was a very fun match. And at the end of the night, I wasn't upset with it. Match 5 I'm going to call Tekla's Revenge because it was Tekla versus Starlight Kid from Stardom. And it was just Tekla being as ridiculous and as reckless and as brutalizing as she possibly could be. Starlight Kid did put up a bit of a fight. She definitely wasn't squashed in any way, shape, or form. Tekla also went over to the crowd because the president of Stardom was sitting right over there. And she grabbed him by the tie, and she was about to punch him in the face. Starlight Kid stopped it. It was a whole ordeal. They got back in the ring. They really just were trying to beat the crap out of each other. Turns out Starlight Kid is up 2-0 on Tekla at the beginning of this match. And so her stepping up to be like, I'm going to come after you because you're messing with my company again, and I'm going to take your title from you because you're being a bitch, kind of a thing. Turns out this was Tekla's night. She ended up with the victory. She gets to keep the AEW title. Everything is right with the world now. The Sisters of Sin came out after everything was said and done and made sure that no funny business happened. But then they also went over to the president of Stardom and like messed with him a bit. And he really hammed it up, and it was very silly. But congratulations to Tekla for finally getting a victory over Starlight Kid. And let's see who even has the guts to try to come up against you moving forward. Match 6 of the night brought me my third loss in my predictions because it was Cage and Cope versus the Dogs. I truly thought the Dogs were going to take this, and Cage and Cope were going to take a little bit more of a step back and have somewhat of a mentor role for a little while just to like wind things down. But oh boy, was I wrong. Here's the thing. The Dogs put up a hell of a fight. There were honestly a couple of times they could have taken the titles and they could have won the match, and it would have been an amazing victory for the Dogs. However, the Dogs are also kind of little baby boys when it comes to certain things, and they were trying to cut corners, and then when they tried to cut corners, it just allowed Cage more than Cope to cut those corners instead and get little extra shots in here and there. Although they did at one point put Cage's arm underneath the stairs, the broken arm underneath the stairs, and they were going to like stomp on it and really try to break it and not just have like that hairline fracture or whatever. And at one point a little bit later, Connors and Cope like ran at each other to both do spears, and they just smashed faces essentially. That was very interesting. Near the end of everything, the referee got taken out, and that's when everybody thought, oh, well, the Dogs are absolutely going to take it now because now they can bring out like their weapons and they can get the low blows and they can do whatever cheating methods they feel they need to win. That's not what happened. Finley ended up grabbing the shillelagh and was attempting to make some attacks with it when the lights died. And then suddenly the Bang Bang Gang were all at the top of the ramp and they were just doing their Bang Bang Gang thing. And then all the lights in the arena came back up. And guess who's back? Back again. Jay White's back. Tell a friend. So he's standing in the ring behind Finley. And Finley realizes what's happening, turns around, tries to hit Jay with the shillelagh. Jay gets him and hits him with his finisher, which I'm still calling Sister Abigail, but I know that's not the actual name of it. And then that was that. He offered Finley up to Cope on a silver platter. They got the referee back in. 1, 2, 3. Cage and Cope are still your champions. Bang Bang Gang celebrated on the entry ramp. Everything is right with the world again. I am so happy to have Jay White back. Match 7 of the night went exactly how I figured it would. It just took far too long to get there. This was the Women's Owen Hart Cup Tournament where we saw Mercedes Moné take on Maya World for that whole bragging rights for the next year thing. Everybody knew Moné was going to be the victor. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. She has all the experience. She has all the push behind her because of her fame. But it didn't need to run 20 minutes. This could have been a nice, light, fluffy 10-minute match, and we could have been done with it. But they're really pushing Maya World, which, again, I understand the background of it all. They're giving her the payday, I guess, or whatever, but it didn't need to last 20 minutes. She kicked out of several of Moné's finishers, which is, at this point, like, okay, you can't have the newbies doing that, because at the end of the night, we had the big boys doing that back and forth for 45 minutes. So Maya World had a really good showing, but it was mildly unnecessary. Just my opinion. Moné did win. She now has won the Owen Cup twice in 2 years. She's a back-to-back winner. I don't know what that means for her moving forward, but she's got the big pig belt again. So good for her. Let's just move on to the next thing. Here's where we need to lock in, boils and ghouls, because the second to last match of the night was the cage match. And this cage was ridiculous. It was not a 2-ring massive cage set up for blood and guts. No. They decided to call it something like a trip to hell. And it was one cage surrounding the one ring in just one big circle. No top, no pods. This was not an elimination chamber. This was an actual cage just in a big circle. That's the whole thing. So we had Team MJF versus Team Briscoe. MJF team came out first. All of them were wearing the goofy-ass DC MJF shirts. Don Callis ripped one off his body at the top of the ramp, and it was so silly. The thing about it is, everybody on Briscoe's team brought a backpack with them. And everybody's backpack had something different in it. And not everybody's backpack was actually a backpack, because Roderick Strong brought down a hockey pad bag. And I'm talking like the big bag. The big bag that fits all the pads and all your sticks. And that was interesting. So the match got started. Nobody was really doing anything with weapons for the first little while, and that's fine. Even though it was a no DQ match, you didn't have to go straight to weaponry, right? It was a super brawl as soon as the bell rang. However, again, before the bell rang, Darby Allin had actually climbed up to the top of the cage and left his backpack up there. We'll get back to that. Everybody else had kind of left their backpacks out on the floor outside the ring. They decided to fight with their fists first and then move on from there, and nobody blamed them one little bit. But then eventually the backpacks did get involved. We had several tables set up all around the ring in different random spots. 2 of the tables were golden with the print from the DC MJF shirt, and it was just very silly. So those all got set up. All kinds of shenanigans were happening. And then the backpacks came out. And I had to take notes on the backpacks because everybody had different weapons, like I said. So, backpack number 1, we ended up getting Strong's hockey bag. He didn't open it yet, but he used the bag as the weapon, and he was just swinging it at people for a minute. And then he got taken down finally. His bag got pushed out of the ring. We lost track of the bag for a minute. We called it a day. O'Reilly pulled an original NES out of his bag with a game cartridge. I didn't get to see what the game cartridge was. I'm just going to assume it was old school Mario World, right? He blew in the cartridge, put it in the thing, closed it, and then hit Fletcher in the face, cutting Fletcher's forehead open. That was an entire thing. And then after a little bit of a brawl and the NES disappearing off into the corner, Briscoe grabbed his backpack, unzipped it, and poured a bunch of thumbtacks out. Because why wouldn't Briscoe have a backpack full of thumbtacks? Briscoe, about 90 seconds later, after making this pile of thumbtacks, ended up being yanked off the top turnbuckle and landing back first in the pile of thumbtacks. So he had silver wings for a couple of minutes as he rolled around trying to get them all out. That's not even the worst part. Here's a video of MJF and Darby Allin having a little spat. Oops, Darby's face goes straight into the tacks. Wild. After that, Orange Cassidy got the upper hand on some guys, and then he grabbed his backpack and he pulled out a bag of orange slices from Willow Nightingale, complete with a note. And it was adorable. And everybody came in. Everybody on Briscoe's team came in and grabbed one, and they popped it in their mouth. And then Kyle Fletcher came in, and he knocked the bag out of Orange Cassidy's hands. So then everybody jumped on Kyle Fletcher, and they held him. And then Orange squeezed orange juice into Kyle Fletcher's forehead cut and eyeball. That was fascinating. I don't think I've ever seen that done in professional wrestling before. So, we love it and we move on. Let's see. After that, Takeshita grabs his backpack and nobody knew what to expect. And this is what we got. So Takeshita and Okada just ended up fighting for a couple of minutes just in the ring, and it was a whole ordeal because they hate each other, and it was just a fun little time. After Takeshita opened his backpack, we magically found the hockey bag again, and oh boy, guess what? It was Blackheart Leo Rush. Blackheart Leo Rush was in the hockey bag. Silly as shit. Loved every second of it. He bit Okada's hand, and then he rolled into the ring, and he began to try to take the ring away from MJF. And that was just a whole thing before Okada came in and hit him with the Rainmaker, and they rolled him back out of the ring, and they put him back in the hockey bag. You can't make this shit up anymore. Like, it's just so silly. Finally, though, Kevin Knight decided that he and Darby were going to be fighting, and they were, and it was great. And then Kevin Knight climbed up to the top of the cage. Darby followed after him. Here's the thing about Darby's bag, though. He had, chained it or zip-tied it or something to some of the cords that ran up to the ceiling that brought the cage down. And here's what happened when Kevin Knight grabbed the backpack. And then he fell into those two golden tables. There were 4 tables there, by the way. He only broke through the top 2. The bottom layer, the 2 that were on the floor, did not break. He landed hard on those tables and just kind of stayed there. It was strange, but I don't know how to describe how these 2 tables didn't break other than he hit solid floor before he hit the floor. At the very end of it, Briscoe's team got the win. So Briscoe does get the shot at the title, which he's going to try and cash in this Wednesday. I don't know what the hell is going on with all the stuff that everybody wants to do this Wednesday with titles and whatever, but you know what? I'm not the one booking all these matches. But here's how Briscoe won. Andrade and MJF had gotten into a little scuffle earlier in the match. And Andrade was trying to do something, and then MJF got in his way, and then Andrade did another pose, and then MJF did another pose, and then Andrade got onto the ropes. There was a whole thing. MJF was now trying to get Andrade to pick up Briscoe and hold him so that MJF could hit him with the Dynamite Diamond Ring, and he could get the victory, and we could go from there. Andrade did pick up Briscoe and hold him, but before MJF had a chance to come running and hit him with the Dynamite Diamond Ring, Andrade dropped Briscoe and did his spinning elbow and knocked MJF the fuck out. It was phenomenal. And then Doyle got in the way and was like, what the hell are you doing? He's paying us to help him. Like, how could you do this? To which Andrade said, guess what? Kick to the nuts. Pushed Doyle out of the ring. Ripped off the shitty DC MJF shirt, unbuttoned, not even unbuttoned, ripped open the buttons of a shirt he had underneath, and he had a third shirt on underneath all of that said, fuck MJF, fuck Don Callis. He posed, he turned to Briscoe, he went, ha, and he just served MJF up on a platter. Briscoe got the 1, 2, 3. He gets the title shot. All of that is going to be so much fun. I cannot wait to see how this goes down. Although I'm sure MJF is going to be the victor, which is fine. This whole thing is going to end with MJF keeping his title, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. Don't make it too goofy, even though I love goofy wrestling. So, we will see what they decide to do this Wednesday when Briscoe wants to put the title on the line on television. Good luck, MJF. I know you're still going to win. Don't worry about it. And then we came to the main event. And let me just whisper this in your ear. there was blood everywhere. So Will Ospreay comes out with a weird little video package with Mox doing a voiceover for it as he's doing all kinds of flippy doo-dah whatever. When the lights go out and a spotlight hits the top of the ramp and Will Ospreay comes out in Bane's mask. Fascinating stuff. He gets to the ring, he does his whole thing, everything is hunky-dory, no problems, no issues, nothing but love. And then Swerve's music hits, and Nana comes walking out, and that's just a whole thing in and of itself. But then you could hear the distant rumble of an engine, and Nana points off to the side. Swerve Strickland comes riding out on a motorcycle. And you can't see much because the cameraman decided to put the camera right into the headlight. So no one's quite sure what's going on for a solid 15 seconds. And then the cameraman goes around the side of the bike. And Swerve's got this big, ugly freaking cigar in his mouth. And he's got this goofy-looking Halloween chain and sickle around his neck. And he's dressed like Lobo from, I'm assuming, the new Supergirl movie. And both men are just absolutely trying to beat the ever-loving shit out of each other. Will Ospreay gets broken open at some point. I'm not even quite sure how. I reached to grab my water. I took a drink. I looked back. Will had blood coming down. It was very strange. I didn't feel like running it back a few seconds. Sue me. But as they go on and his blood starts to dry up, they're on the outside and Will is trying to hit a Styles Clash on Swerve on the floor outside the ring. Swerve is not letting him grab the arms with his legs, so he does a spin and smashes Swerve's face right into the corner of the steel stairs, which then instantly makes Swerve start bleeding like a stuck pig on Christmas. And when I tell you that there were 7 different pools of blood in and around the ring by the end of this match, I'm not joking. They were pools of blood. It was crazy. They had a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of things going on. At one point, Will Ospreay got a Styles Clash on Swerve from the steps that he had moved over to the announcer's tables onto the announcer table. And that just left more blood all over that announcer table. The match almost ended twice via countout because Swerve was losing so much blood. It literally took him 9.99999 seconds to get his ass either back in the ring, that was the first time, or even just up because he was down in the ring after Will knocked him over with, I think it was a hidden blade, and then just straight elbow to the back of the head. Horrifying. This entire match was 2 men who really looked like they wanted to kill each other. And it was phenomenal, and I couldn't take my eyes off it. And I loved every second of it. And Will Ospreay ended up with the victory after the Death Riders came out and stood next to the frickin' ring and started cheering him on. And he just went full Mox mode and knocked the fuck out of Swerve. Thank you, good night. So Ospreay is going to All in London, where he will probably win the title. I got 60% of my predictions correct, and that is way too low for me because I watch this every week, and I feel like I know what's going on, but then they throw these weird curveballs, and I don't know what to do with myself. So, that was Forbidden Door 2026. We had a lot of fun. We got to see some new people. We got to see some older people that we haven't seen in a hot minute. And I am very curious what Wednesday is going to bring for us. So, everybody have a great week. It's damn near midnight, so I need to get this uploaded and out of my hair and then go to bed. Don't do anything crazy. Do something that makes you happy this week. And I will see you Wednesday. Peace.